Hello and welcome. I'm Al from MusicGuyPodcast.com, and we're going to be mixing a song. I'm going to show you how I mix a song in 10 steps. This is a song of mine called Waiting on the Right Time. It's available on Spotify right now if you want to check it out. We've got the raw tracks. We've got no plugins, no balancing, no processing of any sort. So we're just listening to the raw mix here, and we'll have a listen, see what it sounds like. All right, so it sounds like a complete mess, but we're going to work on that and hopefully get it sounding great. The first step that I take when I'm mixing is to import my template, which is just the settings from the most recent session I was working on. So we'll do that right now. We'll go to File, Import, Session Data. And here's the last song I was working on. It's called Leaving. It's by an artist named Justine Chantal from the London, Ontario area. So we're going to hit Open. And for those of you at home, there will be a copy of the finished session that we're working on here in the links below so that you can also import it as a template of your own. We're going to bring the data from Justine's tracks and match them with the tracks in our session. So we have a shaker track here. We're going to choose its destination, which will be our shaker track. And we're just going to be copying the volume and plug-in settings and the colors and stuff like that. We're not going to be actually copying any audio here today, just settings. All right, and we've also got a kick in and out. Got some snare tracks here. We have a snare reverb, which I don't currently have in the new session, so I want to bring that in as a new track. So I'm just going to click on the name of it here, and we'll see that it's now coming in on a new track. I do have a rack and floor tom, so I'll be bringing those in. An overhead, a hi-hat, and a drum room mic, which on this previous session was actually a stereo aux track. On our session, it's a stereo audio track, so we won't be able to import it directly, but we can import it as a new track and drag the plugins over afterwards. So we'll do that for now. We've got a drum aux, drum VCA, which we'll bring in on new tracks. We've got a bass. We've got a few acoustics here. We'll just bring in one acoustic on one of our acoustics. We've got a electric guitar track here played by Will from The Agenda. And we'll bring that in on one of our guitar tracks here. What else we have? We got some effects, some reverb and delay. Those will come in on new tracks. A guitar VCA, new track. Justine's vocal track will copy the plugin chain and settings to my vocal track, which is called Al. We've got a lead vocal VCA for a new track. Some vocal effects all on new tracks. A BG vocal VCA on a new track. And then we got a pile of BG vocals here. We'll just bring in one of them on one of our BGs, and that'll do it. And then we'll bring in our master fader and our mix bus, and we're good to go. So we want to make sure that we do not import any main playlists. That will bring in the audio from the old session and replace our audio in our current sessions. We definitely don't want to do that. And as such, we want to deselect alternate playlists and clips and media. We don't want any audio coming in from the old session onto our session. So now we're good to go. We'll click OK. And Pro Tools has brought in all our aux tracks. It's brought in our colors. It's brought in all our plug-in settings from the previous session. So now we'll flip over to our mix window by hitting Control and equals. If you're on a Mac, it'll be Command and equals. So Control equals, flip over to our mix window, and start organizing our tracks in a way that makes sense. So I'm going to select multiple tracks at once by clicking on one track, holding Shift, and clicking on another. Select multiple tracks, and I can move these, click and drag, move these over. So I got all my drums together now. We'll put our snare verb beside our snare drums. Here's our room track that we brought in from Justine's session. And here's our room track for our session, which is our audio track. So all we want to do here is just drag, click and drag, move these plugins over. And then we can get rid of this old room track. Delete. All right. And let's move our bass, acoustics, guitars, and synths. We'll just hold shift and click those, drag them over here. We've got our guitar VCA to control them. We've got our instrument effects. We've got some lead vocal tracks here. We'll move over here. And we've got our backup vocals, which we will move over here. And finally, we have our master fader, and our mix bus at the very end here. All right. And so we're almost ready to start doing some mixing. We just have a couple of housekeeping items to take care of. So we're going to flip back to our edit window with control and equals. And what we want to do is remove any volume automation that came in from the previous session. So we're going to have a look at the volume lines of all of our tracks by holding Alt and clicking on any one of our tracks wave boxes here, which is short for waveform. We're going to switch to volume. So now we're viewing the volume lines for all these tracks. We can see there's some automation here on this vocal track that came in from the old session, some automation here. So we just want to make sure we don't have any automation happening. We're going to select our all group from the bottom left here and select the full area of our session, hit delete, and now the automation is gone. So we won't have any automation pulling on our faders while we're trying to mix. So we'll deselect our all group and flip back to our mix window. All right. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that all of our tracks are sending to the proper location, which for this session is the mix bus. So any of these blue tracks most likely didn't have any information imported onto them when we imported the template. So they're going to still by default be sending to our main output, which is analog 1, 2. So we want to change that to be sending to our mix bus like all of our other tracks. So we're just looking for any track that's still sending to analog 1, 2. We can click on them, hold control to select multiple tracks, and hold shift and alt, click on their output, send it to a track, mix bus. These ones are good. These ones here, big group of them, you can hold shift and click to select a bunch of them at once, hold shift and alt, and send them to the mix bus. Don't want to forget about this guy here. And we've got a lead vocal that needs to go to the mix bus. We've got all the backup vocals that need to go to the mix bus. So now everything is sending to the mix bus as it should be. So now we can make everything look nice and pretty by making things the proper colors. So all these drum tracks, I want them to be red. So I'm going to select one track that's the color that I want, and the tracks that are the colors that I want to change. Double click on the color area here, and I'll see the target color of the first track I selected and the color of the tracks I want to change. So I'll just click on the color that I want, and now they're all the same. Do that with my acoustics here as well, and my electrics. Just leave the synths blue, and so now everything looks very color coordinated. I'll leave my reverb green just so I know it's different from the rest of the drums. Okay, and finally we want to make sure that everything is belonging to the appropriate group. So we want to make sure that all our drums are in the drum group. So we'll go over here to the bottom left, right click on our drum group and select modify. And we see that our shaker, claps, snare verb, and rooms need to be added to the group. So I'm just holding shift and clicking on these. I'll click on add and OK. And now what that's going to allow is for this drum VCA to control all the tracks in the drum group. So it can mute them all, it can solo them all, and it can control their volume as well. All right, so we'll make sure that all of these tracks here are part of the guitar group. Go to the bottom left, right-click Guitars, select Modify, and we want the acoustic, these two electrics, and all of our synths to be part of our guitars group. Okay, and now we can check and just see that this VCA is now controlling all of these instruments. Excellent. We'll add our ad-lib track to our lead vocal group, LV down here. Right-click, say Modify. Ad-lib, add, okay. And make sure all our BGs are in the BG group. So we'll right-click on BG group, Modify, and we'll bring in our BG vocals. We got Mark, Will, all these oohs. We'll add those. Say OK. So now our BG VCA can mute and control our BGs, and our lead vocal VCA can control both of our lead vocal tracks. Okay, excellent. So the last thing we need to do is copy over some plugin information to the tracks that didn't get it. So here's an acoustic that got some plugins on it. Here's another acoustic track that doesn't yet. So we'll just hold Alt and click and drag and bring those plugins over so that now these have the same settings on them. We can also match their volume roughly just as a starting point. Same with these electrics here. We'll just hold Alt and click and drag and match their volumes. And we've got two lead vocal tracks here that will get the same settings. Oops. All right, and the backup vocals. So we're going to send all these plugins over to all of our backup vocal tracks as well. So this is going to save you a ton of time rather than clicking into your plugin menu, going into a sub-menu, going into another sub-menu to find each plugin every time. It's much faster to just copy them over, especially when the tracks are so similar and are likely going to require very similar or exactly the same plugin settings. And we'll leave these oohs for now. We're going to process these as a group. So that is going to do it for this first video. We're all set to move on to the second step, which is to get a rough balance. So we'll see you there.